Have you ever heard the saying, money is the root of all evil? Well, in the case of the wealthy Harrison family, that old saying turned out to be tragically true. This is the story of a sprawling dynasty, a billion-dollar fortune, and a family feud so bitter it tore them apart, culminating in a courtroom battle that left everyone, including the judge, absolutely stunned. Our story begins with Theodore Harrison, a self-made tycoon who built a global empire from nothing. He was a ruthless businessman, but a doting father to his 3 children: Richard, the eldest, and his presumed heir; Eleanor, the sharp and ambitious middle child; and young Samuel, the free-spirited artist of the family. Growing up, the Harrison siblings were inseparable, living a life of unimaginable luxury. But beneath the polished surface of their lavish lifestyle, a quiet rivalry was brewing, one that would erupt with the force of a volcano upon their father's death. Theodore Harrison passed away at the age of 85, leaving behind a legacy and a will that was supposed to secure his children's futures. But when the will was read, it contained a bombshell. Instead of splitting his vast fortune equally, Theodore had left the bulk of his estate, staggering 90%, to his eldest son, Richard. Eleanor received a meager 5%, and Samuel just a trust fund with strict conditions. The reasons stated in the will? Theodore believed Richard was the only one with the business acumen to carry on his legacy. For Eleanor and Samuel, this was the ultimate betrayal. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Eleanor, who had dedicated her life to the family business, working tirelessly by her father's side, felt utterly dismissed. Samuel, who had always had a strained relationship with his father over his artistic pursuits, saw the will as the final, posthumous rejection. The siblings who once shared secrets now only shared accusations. Phone calls turned into screaming matches. Family dinners became battlegrounds. Eleanor and Samuel decided to join forces. They believed their father had been manipulated. They claimed Richard had systematically isolated Theodore in his final years, feeding him lies about them to secure the lion's share of the inheritance. They alleged undue influence, a legal term for when someone pressures a vulnerable person into changing their will. So, they did what wealthy feuding families do. They sued. The stage was set for one of the most high-profile probate battles in recent history. The trial began, and the family's dirty laundry was aired for all the world to see. Eleanor's lawyers painted Richard as a greedy, manipulative son who preyed on his aging father. They presented emails where Richard spoke dismissively of his siblings and produced witnesses, his former household staff, who testified that Richard controlled all access to Theodore in his final months. They described a man who was once a titan of industry, becoming frail and confused, increasingly dependent on his eldest son. Samuel's testimony was heartbreaking. He spoke of a lifetime of seeking his father's approval and never getting it. He read personal letters and journal entries that depicted Theodore as a cold, demanding patriarch who valued profit above all else, including his children's happiness. He argued that their father's mind was poisoned against him long before his health declined, all part of Richard's long-term strategy. The courtroom was captivated. It seemed like a clear case of a son taking advantage of his vulnerable father. Then, it was Richard's turn to take the stand. Everyone expected him to be arrogant and defensive. Instead, he was calm, collected, and surprisingly emotional. His lawyers began to dismantle the narrative his siblings had so carefully constructed. They argued that Theodore Harrison was a sharp, shrewd man until the very end. In these videos, he spoke at length about his business philosophy and his vision for the company's future. Arthur testified that Theodore had been planning this division of assets for years. He explained that Theodore was deeply disappointed in Eleanor's recent higher-risk business decisions that had cost the company millions. In fact, she had hidden from the family. He also revealed that Theodore was heartbroken over Samuel's reckless spending habits and his refusal to take on any responsibility. According to Arthur, the will wasn't an act of favoritism. It was a desperate attempt by a father to protect his legacy from what he saw as the irresponsibility of two of his children. The courtroom was buzzing. This testimony completely changed the complexion of the case. Eleanor and Samuel's claims of their father being a confused old man were now in doubt. But the real shocker was yet to come. Richard's lawyers then played a final piece of evidence. It was a private audio recording. The voice was unmistakably Theodore Harrison's, recorded about a year before his death. In it, he was speaking to Richard. He sounded weary, but his words were crystal clear. He said, "Richard, they don't understand. It's not about the money. It's about the work, the legacy. I'm leaving you in charge not because I love you more, but because you are the only one who understands that this company is bigger than any of us. It needs a guardian, not a beneficiary." He continued, and this is where it got really interesting. It's 5 years from today. If Eleanor and Samuel have demonstrated true growth, responsibility, and a commitment to this family's values, you are to dissolve the current structure and divide the entire fortune equally among the three of you. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence. Richard hadn't manipulated his father. He was entrusted with a secret, a 5-year plan designed by his father to force his siblings to mature. The will wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a test. Richard had been carrying this immense burden alone, vilified by his siblings and the public, all while honoring his father's hidden wishes. He couldn't reveal the plan without violating his father's trust and invalidating the entire test. He had to endure their hatred, hoping that one day they would understand. The judge, clearly moved, took only a short time to deliver the verdict. He ruled in favor of Richard, upholding the will. But he didn't stop there. In a rare personal address from the bench, he spoke directly to Eleanor and Samuel. He told them that the greatest inheritance their father had left them wasn't money, but a chance to prove themselves and to heal their fractured family. He urged them to look beyond their anger and see the difficult lesson their father was trying to teach them. The verdict was a shock, but the revelation of Theodore's secret plan was the real story. Richard, Eleanor, and Samuel left the courthouse separately, not speaking. Will Eleanor and Samuel accept the challenge their father laid out for them? Can this family, torn apart by greed and suspicion, ever find its way back together? We don't know. The 5-year clock is ticking. What would you do in their shoes? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the things we fight over are not nearly as important as the people we're fighting with. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.